So we recently did a video where we kind of went over our concern, our displeasure with the policy of harvest hosts allowing their locations to just set exorbitant fees if they so choose on electrical, water hookups, things like that. And we got some really, really great comments on that. And so we just kind of wanted to do a follow-up and share, our thoughts on it and why, at least for now, we are choosing to keep our Harvest Host membership. Now we will reevaluate it at the end of the year to see if it's still worth it for us, but I'm gonna go ahead and share some of the reasons why we're keeping it. And for any of you that are not familiar with the program, I'll go ahead and explain, kind of how we use it, how we find the best sites, and kind of stay away from those hosts that just are charging an awful lot and, just kind of seem to be in it for the wrong reasons. So stay tuned. All right, so we're wrapping up our third Harvest Host / Boondockers here at the gourd barn. Inside, she makes just a ton of stuff with gourds over the winter.
All right, so we're here with Ed and Casey. They're the owners of the Boondockers. Welcome to the Harvest. It's a Boondockers welcome.
Boondockers welcome.
That we just stayed at.
We are at Wallace Meadows Farm. It's a harvest host here in Trenton, North Carolina. It is out in the country, really peaceful.
We're finishing up a 4-night stay here at Bliss Hill Farms in Georgia.
All right, so as I said, we are gonna go ahead and keep our membership for now, and here's kind of why. So we, at least for overnight stops, we're just gonna be there for a couple hours, whatnot. We like to save the rest areas and the truck stops for the actual truckers. Now, we'll use them in an absolute emergency, which thankfully has not happened, but we don't like to take up those spaces. I really don't like the idea of camping overnight at a Walmart, and I'm not quite sure, at least for our rig size, whether or not we'd fit comfortably or appropriately at a Cracker Barrel, so we don't really use those. And of course, the main reason to stay with Harvest Hosts is because of the unique stays. So we haven't done it yet, but I'd love to stay at like a llama farm or a bison farm. But we have stayed at some farms with some goats. And chickens, and those are really cool. And of course the wineries, the breweries, the museums, things like that. So at least at this point, those unique stays are kind of a big driving factor in why we're keeping our membership. And we'll go ahead and discuss some of the numbers here in a minute. All right, so for those of you who don't know, I'm gonna use my phone as a cheat sheet here. So Harvest Hosts has 3 different membership levels. So the first one is called Harvest Host Classic, and that gets you access to just Harvest Hosts. And that is currently $99 a year. The next level is Harvest Host Plus Escapees, because they just bought out, merged with, whatever you want to call it, with Escapees. So you get the Harvest Host plus all the benefits of Escapees. And that is $148. Finally, the third level is called Harvest Host All Access. And that's where you get the Harvest Host, Escapees, Boondockers Welcome, and access to golf courses and like country clubs and stuff. So, and that one is $179. All right, so we just realized during the editing process that the pricing that I see as a member is different than the pricing you're gonna see as a non-member. So all of those figures that I gave you are what you're gonna see when you're just renewing your membership. So for non-members, it looks like the pricing is, Classic is still $99. Then your second level is Harvest Hosts plus Boondockers Welcome for $169 a year. And then your third level is that all access plan for the $179. And then finally, there's been a lot of controversy over does that $30 suggested donation / purchase, does that include the hookup fees that you may or may not pay for electric, water, things like that? So according to their website, it says you can do this by purchasing something from the business, paying fees to use hookups, or by making a donation. So according to their website, and this is found in the Code of Conduct, that $30 suggested donation would include any hookup fees you pay. So if you're paying $35 a night for 30 amp, 50 amp electric, you are under no obligation to then buy something else in addition. So just to kind of clear that up, there's it's a big topic on the Facebook forums on, do I pay an addition? Is that included? What's the deal? I want to be a good guest, but at the same time, So yeah, according to their website, that $30 includes any fees you may or may not pay for hookups. Now, all 3 of the levels give you access to, they call it a campground partners. And so they've partnered with various campgrounds around the country, kind of like a Good Sam card. And you'll get, 10, 12, sometimes 20% off by using your camper card from Harvest Host when you book with these campgrounds. And those are all listed. You can toggle them on and off if you don't want to access them. And then also, they provide you discounts to various things like 15% at Goodyear, 31% on Michelin tires, $50 to $100 off of fantasy RV tours, which I've heard can be really cool, 30% off of the All Trails app, which I'm gonna have to remember because I don't think I'm currently using it, and 20% off 1,000 Trails annual pass, among others. There were probably, I think they said 133 different discounts. Everything is RV related, but you get all of that, those campground partners and the discounts with all 3 levels. So Harvest Host has a ton of filters that you can use so that you're not having to weed through every single host that's not going to fit your needs. So we'll go ahead here and I'll show you the different filters and how you can easily use them. So the first one that you can filter for is the dates tab. So if you know that you're going to be wanting to be somewhere, say the 20th of May, you can specifically select the 20th and it'll only show you hosts that have availability for that night. All right, so the next one is host type. So I don't really mess with this one, but if you, for whatever reason, say you don't drink, you don't want to be around alcohol, you don't want to take the chance that they're going to have something that's non-alcoholic for you to purchase, you can go through and you can click, okay, I don't want to stay at a winery and I don't want to stay at a brewery or distillery. You can deselect farms, maybe you're allergic to animals. Maybe you have no desire to go to a golf course. So you can filter these out based on things that you just don't even want to look at. Rig length. That is the big one for us. Now, if you are a Class B camper van, you can pretty much go anywhere. But for us, we're a 44-foot fifth wheel, so we have to really pay attention to the host sites because there are a lot of them that don't accept rigs over, our size. So that's something that I would change. Hookups, this is season specific. If you're going to be, in Houston, Texas in July, you're gonna want air conditioning. But if you're gonna be in Houston in January, you might not need electricity. So it's something that I toggle on seasonally. And something to pay attention to with the electric portion is that some hosts only have 15 or 20 amp electric. Well, that's not enough to run your air conditioning unit. So you'll have to pay attention if you're needing electricity to run an AC, then you're going to need to make sure that they have 30 and 50 amp. And that'll be clearly stated out in their host description, along with any pricing that they charge for that. Another neat filter is stay extra nights. It used to be you could only stay one night, but a lot of hosts will allow you to stay an extra night either for free or for a charge. So if you know that you want to maybe be there for 2, 3, 4 nights, go ahead and click that on and it'll only show the hosts that allow that. Campground partners. So I discussed that previously. So here's where you would toggle those on and I'll show you really quick. It comes up as, they almost look like sales tags. And so it's this white icon with like this blue thing, and the the icon will actually show you like 10%, 12%, 20%. So I'm gonna go ahead and toggle that off for right now. Same day booking. Some people like to fly by the seat of their pants, or plan A fell through, so now they're looking for something last minute. There are hosts that allow same day booking. There are hosts that don't. So if you're looking for something that day, you can toggle that on and you're not bugging people or looking through profiles where they don't allow that. And then finally, the last set of filters is things like, do they allow pets? Some of them don't. Slide outs allowed based on, are you trying to tuck into a really tight space? Do they have an area if you need to separate your towed or your tow vehicle? Are generators allowed? Is outdoor cooking allowed? And you can also toggle by favorites only, maybe that you visited in the past or that have been recommended to you. So those are the various filters that you can use. So the other thing, and I actually recently just discovered this, is the different map types. So the default is the street view, but you can actually select the satellite view, the terrain view. You can toggle on the dump stations so you'll know where the dump stations are in proximity to the different hosts. And then you can also select cell phone coverage. So we happen to use Verizon, so I'll go ahead and toggle that off. That shows me that Verizon is pretty well represented right here. And then you can also do temperature, precipitation, and wind, but that's only the current conditions. It's not kind of a future forecast. So if you're looking for something, what's the wind gonna be like 3 days from now? That's not gonna help you. So I'll go ahead and take that off. We'll go back to street view just because it's kind of easier when I'm searching anyway, but it's all preference. Okay, so how I use the filters is the big one, and the one that I always have selected is the rig length, because we're so big. So right here in this map area, I've got 78 hosts. Once I select over 45 feet, then it drops it down to 33 hosts for the area. Okay, so the next thing that I'm gonna select is, I wanna stay in Houston in July. I need electricity. So I'm gonna click the electric hookup. Now I'm down to 14 hosts. And you know what? I want to stay a couple of days, so we'll do that. Drops me down to 12 hosts. So now I only have to look at those 12 hosts and go through their profiles to see whether or not they have the appropriate electric for me. Do they maybe have a water fill that I can use? What's their pricing for the electricity usage, which we had discussed in that previous visit? That, and if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend going back and viewing it, because we discuss how many of the hosts, not the majority, but many hosts are charging exorbitant fees for electric. I mean, we're talking $65 a night for a 50 amp connection. You're not gonna go through $65 in a 24-hour period, even if you're running everything in your rig. So if that's a concern for you, read their description and vote with your dollar and just don't stay there. But there are plenty, like the vast majority are very reasonable. Some of them don't charge. They say, give us a donation, or they're like, yeah, it's $10 a night. So just read through the description to see all that. All right, so a few sites just to show you kind of what I was talking about. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull those up and you can see those. All right, so this is an example of, this host says that they offer electric, but it's only that 20 amp. So again, depending on the season, you might be able to get away with that, especially if you're only needing it to top up your power stations, or power your laptop or something. So that's something to be on the lookout for. All right, so this one, they say they have 20, 30, and 50. They offer up to 4 extra nights for $35, but they charge $35 a night for the use of those hookups. So if you're not willing to pay that amount of money, then you would know not to stay there. All right, and here's an example of something that I find is they're just overcharging. They are pricing themselves in such a way that honestly, they're a campground. So they say they have 50 amps, but weekday rates, so the weekday rates for hookups is $55. Weekend it's $65. And then if you want to stay an extra night and only boondock, it's $45 a night. So again, I mean, unless there's nothing else in the area and I really need to be in that area, I'm probably not going to stay with them, because what are they offering? So vote with your dollar, and if that concerns you, don't stay there. If you're fine with it, go for it. But that's where you're going to find that information. So sometimes it's going to be down in the extra nights portion, and sometimes it's going to be up here in the suitability portion. As I said previously, we're going to go ahead and keep our membership this year, and we'll reevaluate at the end of next year. And so I went back through our membership stays and whatnot, and they recently changed their pricing. So I'm basing this off of, I think we paid about $150 a year for the last 2 years. So we stayed at 19 different hosts in those 2 years, and that works out to be $16 per stay. So that is before I do my $30 donation, purchase, whatever. So only 2 of those, though, were ones that we wouldn't return to. One of them was simply because their location, they had like really loud traffic all night long.
And they like to come up to, I think it must be one of these stoplights here, and they like to just sit there and rev their engines on these Harleys.
And like the host location was great, level parking, easy to get into, you know, super peaceful otherwise, but that overnight traffic was just too much for us. And then the other place, because I didn't verify in advance, we paid $20 a night for 30 amp hookup, and then he wanted $20 a night for our additional stays. So additional nights ended up being $40 each. And had I known that in advance, we may not have stayed there. Plus, we kind of felt like he was just very like, all right, you're plugged in, so where's my money? So that just kind of left a bad feeling. But those were only 2, I guess, negatives that places that we've stayed at. So for 2025, like I said, the price has gone up to $179. So for 2025, we have 5 hosts tentatively booked, and that $179 divided by the 5 hosts that we're planning on staying with comes out to be $36 a stop. And that's just to get access to the map and whatnot. So that's before we pay our $30 to the actual host. So again, so we're looking at a minimum of $66 per stop if we do the minimum $30 donation or purchase. So again, we'll have to evaluate it at the end of the year and see, you know, maybe these hosts were absolutely amazing, because I am willing to pay for those unique stays. Like I said, I'd love to go to a llama farm. I love anything to do with baby goats, love chickens. There's a missile silo somewhere that I'd like to go to. So depending on our experiences, did we feel like it was worth it? Or are we utilizing a lot of the harvest hosts because there's no campgrounds in the area and these are our only options? So that's just another tool in our planning bucket. So, you know, we'll see, and we'll go ahead and update you, let you know, kind of our thoughts at the end of the year, whether we're going to continue or whether we're gonna drop it. So if you have any questions, comments, whatever things that we didn't cover, go ahead and drop those down in the comments down below. And if you haven't seen it, like I said, our previous video where we discuss our kind of disappointment with harvest hosts on their allowance of these hosts to charge these fees for the hookups, we'll go ahead and pop that link down in the description below. We'll also go ahead and put a discount code down in the description below to receive 15% off of your membership. And as always, Harvest Hosts offers a 3-month satisfaction guarantee. So if you get into it, you decide, you know what, there's just not hosts in the places where I plan to visit and I'm just not going to use it, you can get your money back within that 3-month period. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. As always, happy camping and stay safe out there.